These are the elements which account for all harmony in music. The purpose of harmony is to give pleasure. Pleasure is awakened by variety of sounds. Unison, third, fifth, sixth, octave, and the intervals made up of these and the octave are consonances. Some of these are perfect consonances, the others imperfect. The unison, fifth, and octave are perfect. The sixth and third are imperfect. The remaining intervals, like the second, fourth, diminished fifth, tritone, seventh, and the intervals made up of these and the octave, are dissonances. But why? The interval of a fourth in particular seems to provide pleasant resolution. Yet, in Johann Joseph Fux's Gradus ad Parnassum, the study of counterpoint, he does not classify the fourth as a consonance. Fux's treatment of the interval of the fourth is even more complicated than that. As Alfred Mann notes in his translation of Gradus ad Parnassum, Fux distinguishes between the fourth obtained from the arithmetical division of the octave and that deriving from the harmonic division. In the first case, where the lower tone of the fourth is at the same time the fundamental tone, that is, in every instance when dealing with two voices, the fourth is considered a dissonance. In the second case, its dissonant character is invalidated by the new fundamental tone, and it can be considered an imperfect consonance. But this raises more questions. What does Fux mean by the harmonic and arithmetical divisions? Alfred Mann clarifies this in the appendix. The species of the harmonic and arithmetical divisions are used by Fux in the theoretical part of the Gradus ad Parnassum for deriving a number of intervals from the basic interval of the octave. Fux uses two progressive proportions, the arithmetical proportion, 4 to 3 to 2, and the harmonic proportion, 6 to 4 to 3. The harmonic division, not the golden mean, is a species no longer in use today. It is based on the principle that the components of the progressive proportion A to B to C correspond to the components of the harmonic series if 1 over C minus 1 over B equals 1 over B minus 1 over A. The arithmetical series, however, is based on the principle the components of the progressive proportion A to B to C correspond to the components of an arithmetical series if C minus B equals B minus A. In the arithmetical series, accordingly, the remainders of the values are constant. In the harmonic series, the remainders of the reciprocal values are constant. Fux, in the chapter dealing with the harmonic division, shows one way to find a harmonic proportion from an arithmetical proportion. In the arithmetical proportion 4 to 3 to 2, the outer components are to be multiplied by the inner component. That is, 4 times 3 equals 12, and 3 times 2 equals 6. The products represent the outer components of a harmonic proportion. In order to find the proper middle component, the outer components of the arithmetical proportion have to be multiplied. 4 times 2 equals 8. Thus, we find the harmonic proportion 12 to 8 to 6. In other words, from the arithmetical proportion A to B to C, we have found the harmonic proportion A1 to B1 to C1 equals AB to AC to BC. In defining the consonant and dissonant fourths, Fux derives the interval of the fourth twice from the ratio of the octave, 2 to 1, the greater number indicating the lower tone according to the divisions of the string on the monochord. This proportion is first arithmetically and then harmonically divided. In the first instance, the proportion 2 to 1 is extended 4 to 2, and by inserting the middle component 3, the arithmetical proportion 4 to 3 to 2 is completed. Translating the proportions into musical intervals, we find 4 to 3 is the fourth, and 3 to 2 is the fifth of the 2 to 1 octave. In the second instance, the proportion 2 to 1 is extended to 6 to 3, and by inserting the middle component 4, the harmonic proportion 6 to 4 to 3 is completed. That is, 6 to 4 is the fifth, and 4 to 3 is the fourth, where 2 to 1 is the octave. Fux uses the harmonic division again in explaining the natural order of the consonances, the octave, fifth, and major third. The ratio of the octave, 2:1, is once more taken as a basis. This proportion is harmonically divided, and the first new proportion resulting is again harmonically divided. Thus, the development from the simplest to the more complicated natural intervals is shown by the harmonic division. As before, the proportion 2:1 is extended to 6:3, and harmonically divided by the middle component, 4. Of the two intervals represented in the proportion 6:4:3, we choose the first, the interval of the fifth, and apply the harmonic division to its ratio, 3:2. The proportion has to be extended to 15:10 and the middle component, 12, which can be found according to the formula for the harmonic series mentioned above, and the result is 15:12 as the major third, 5:4, and 12:10 as the minor third, or 6:5, out of the fifth, which is 3:2. In the natural order, illustrated through the harmonic division, we have found the major third as the next interval. So knowing how the interval of the fourth is derived in the harmonic and arithmetical proportions, what do we do with this? What is it that Fux is actually saying to avoid in musical practice? After all, Fux notes in the foreword that he has given very little space in this book to theory and much more to practice. So what are we supposed to take away practically? Well, the primary difference between the interval of the fourth and the harmonic and arithmetical proportional divisions is the placement or usage of the fourth. Going back to the footnote, where the lower tone of the fourth is at the same time the fundamental tone, the fourth is considered a dissonance. With this in mind, the alternative, where the fundamental tone is the higher of the two notes in the interval of the fourth, is the only way where it can be an imperfect consonance. The harmonic and arithmetic approaches derive the same interval, but they approach it in different ways, meaning that the fundamental note will be different depending on how it's approached. In this sense, the main thing to take away from Fuchs's characterization of the interval of the fourth is to avoid using the fundamental tone as the lower note of the interval of a fourth. This conforms with even our modern music practice. As we can see in guitarists who play more commonly a version of the power chord that uses the fifth starting with the lower note as the fundamental root, with the fourth added on top, rather than the fourth with the lowest note being the fundamental root, with the fifth added on top. Of course, modern guitarists are breaking almost every other rule of counterpoint by playing power chords in succession, but maybe there is still something to be gained by understanding how the musical interval of the fourth was treated in the classical study of counterpoint. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.